at 6 o'clock is what it's advertised. We're a minute or two after. I know that we have several people that have various other obligations tonight, and I want to thank each one of y'all for being out here. But as you know, the Joint Committee holds public hearings to receive suggestions and recommendations on how the Mississippi Legislature should redistrict itself and its 4 congressional districts. During the course of the hearing, I, Chair, will offer members of the public the opportunity to give comments to the committee or to give statements to the committee about our upcoming redistricting efforts. By custom, we try to give members of the public a free opportunity to say what they wish. In cases it appears that there are going to be many persons who are to speak, we do limit their time. As to what time limits we impose will be up to me as chair, depending on how many persons want to speak. And I mean, you are free to say what you would like, but I do want to mention that one thing that we do not do municipal or county redistricting, and we've had a lot of comments or questions and concerns in the past about those areas. It's not that we're not insensitive to those issues and concerns that people have, but it's outside of our purview. So at this time, as chair of the committee, I want to call the public hearing of the Joint Reapportionment Committee and Joint Congressional Redistricting Committee to order, and ask our council to call the rolls of the members present.
Mr. Beckett.
Here.
Mr. Blackman. Mr. Brown. Mr. Eubanks. Mr. Ford.
Here.
Mr. Mangold. Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Shanks.
Here.
Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. White. Mr. Kirby.
Here.
Mr. Bryan. Mr. DeBar. Mr. Harkins. Mr. Hobson.
Here.
Mr. Parker. Mr. Simmons. Mr. Tate. Ms. Turner Ford. Mr. Wiggins.
Thank you. And I just want to remind you that we do not have to have a quorum in order to take this testimony. The roll is taken for the purpose of just documenting who is present, and so that's our purpose for doing that. At this time, I don't think anyone else walked in that was not present. And in addition to the committee members, we have 2 other members I see. That's Mr. Sam Mims, Mr. Robert Johnson, and we want to thank y'all for y'all's attendance. And at this meeting, I don't believe there's anyone else that's present. I want to thank our host institution here for this facility that they made available to us, and just for their hospitality. And this is awful nice as we travel around the state to have an opportunity, primarily to visit our institutions of higher learning and our community colleges, and that's where most if not all the facilities are, and we thank them for that. I want to thank our staff for all the work they've done in setting these meetings up, both the LBO and the peer staff, both the work in preparation for the meeting itself and the work on the redistricting numbers. As we open this meeting, once again, I want to also thank our staff for graciously going through the transcripts of the meetings from 2010 and the meetings that we've had from this is the 6th hearing out of 9 that in this series for this year. And they've gone through and they've kind of some of the things that are more commonly asked and more common concerns that people have. We kind of listed those, and I'm gonna cover those, and hopefully even if you don't ask a question about that or make a statement about that, it might answer a concern that you have, or at least provide some information that you don't have. One thing is, why do we redistrict? And I need to point out that both the federal constitutional requirements of one person, one vote require us to redistrict both the congressional districts and the legislative districts every 10 years following the census. Additionally, Section 254 of our Constitution of 1890 requires requires redistricting of the legislature. So although it may be a painful process, it may be a process that everyone doesn't necessarily enjoy, both going through it or the end results, it is something that is required by law that be done. The other thing is, when will we commence redistricting? And I just want y'all to know that redistricting has started. Officially, I guess it really restarted with the taking of the census, if you want to know the truth about actually when it started. But this committee was organized back around July 1st, around that time frame. And like I say, this is the sixth in a series of nine meetings that we'll be having going around the state. And so redistricting has started. We are at the beginning of the process, not near the finish line, but we are just beginning it. Because of the qualifying deadlines of next year for our congressional redistricting, our efforts at congressional redistricting will come first and will occur during the fall of this year. We will be working on our on the legislature during the months of the 2022 legislative session. So in January, February, March, we'll be working on the legislative districts because we have a little more time on those. Qualifying will be a little over a year away for those. Why do we have to make changes to districts? Because the population shifts. We'll be required to make changes, and we're going to face challenges in making those changes as we go across the state. There are certain parts of the state, as you can see on the maps that are outside, that have lost population, a great deal of population. There are some areas, fewer areas, but there are some areas that have gained a great deal of population. And then there's a lot of the state that has stayed relatively close to what they had before. They gained or lost a small amount. But through all that, all those instances cause problems for us and cause their unique set of difficulties. When your area is gaining in population or whether your area is losing in population, it becomes difficult to draw the districts. We happen to be here in the southwestern part of the state, and if you'll notice, there's been population loss in a lot of this area. In many of the counties around here, there are a couple of districts that lost, as in all parts of the state. Some districts, counties have lost more than others, but overall, we're looking at a loss in population in this part of the state. And you'll notice that the ideal size for a House district and the ideal size for a Senate district, and it's for a House district, it's around 24,273 people, and you can have using a 5% deviation rule, you'd be up or down on that. For Senate, we're looking at about approximately 56,948, and the same thing, you could be up or down from that some. But please note that in our congressional districts, we're looking at 740,320 people with zero deviation. So if you'll notice that as we're moving along, you'll see that all the Mississippi House's Senate districts are not going to be identical in size. They're going to be within that deviation, but the congressional districts don't allow for deviation. So they'll all be within basically one vote of each other. So that will be extremely close. In doing that, we will use every effort possible to to not having split precincts. But I'll just answer one question that we normally get, our statement. We may draw a plan that doesn't have any split precincts, but after we get through, then the counties are going to draw their districts, and they're going to move precinct lines, which they're going to split some of the districts. Some of the districts we're going to draw as not being split, then they're going to change the lines, so there will actually be split precincts, and they're required to do that. It's not like they're doing it just because they want to, but they're required to. They're smaller. In most cases, their districts are smaller than ours, and they're just going to require some changing and moving around. And we started this process with census estimates, and you might ask why we started with estimates, because we had delays, and there were delays in processing the census data, and the actual numbers that we use in redistricting were not available when we started this process, and we couldn't wait any longer because of the time frames that we had to do the redistricting in. Those estimates have been used in the past. They're helpful to show us what areas of the state have gained population, lost population, but they're not useful or can't be used to draw districts, because we started out without any precinct data, basically. The committee has received the numbers for, I think, Thursday or Friday of last week, and they're in the process of using that data and then putting all of it. And these maps are new, and they're based on the finished data that they received, which I need to tell you that September 30th is the absolute drop date that any, I would say, anything that might have to be changed in the data will be changed by then. We don't anticipate there will be any changes, and if there are changes, we anticipate minor changes. But just know that September 30th, there will not be any more changes, but more than likely they'll look exactly like these numbers we have out here. The other thing is, how many members of the public participate in this process, and there are several ways. One is by discussing their concerns at this meeting. We're here to hear your concerns this evening, and we will listen to any matter that you wish to bring to our attention about how and where we draw congressional and legislative districts. I'm here to let members of the public know they must sign a card with their name so that the committee can call on them. So if you have a question that you would like, or a statement you'd like to make, not question, but if you have a statement you would like to make, because that's what we're here for, is to take your statements and your opinions about things, please ask the staff, let them know that you would like to, that you have a comment, and ask for a card and turn it in with your name on it. And so, we'll let me see. Then you can also submit any suggestions to the committee in writing or by email, and you can take advantage of the opportunity to use the committee's public access computer terminals. There'll be a time that I'll set out that you can do that. In this hearing, what kind of concerns does the committee need to hear from the public? And that's basically anything that's on your mind is a simple answer. We may have heard it from someone else. We may have heard it in another location. But if it's your concern, then we want to hear it from you. Just as an example, some things that we've heard in the past, we've heard Voting Rights Act concerns. We've heard concerns about splitting precincts. We've heard concerns about splitting up of municipalities. We've heard concerns about districts that are odd-shaped. In short, we've heard most of the things that seem to bother people around the state. But I just want to remind you that the rules of the House govern joint committees, and we will handle such matters as the House will handle them. How can a member of the public contact the committee to provide information or to book time on the public access computers? And I'm going to read this, even though y'all have the written information in front of you. I'm reading it for the benefit of those who are watching on our webcast, and so everybody doesn't have the benefit of having the information you have in front of it, so that's why we ask that we identify ourselves and those things. But if you have any comments that you want to mail in, send them to Ted Booth, Staff Council, Joint Reapportionment Committee, P.O. Box 1204, Jackson, Mississippi 39215-1204, or send emails to ted.booth@peer, that's PEER.ms.gov. And please provide information for the staff to follow up, such as email address or telephone numbers. If we've had people that have sent things in without any way to contact them back. And so in order to help the staff so they can reply, please either put your email or your address on that. The public access for congressional redistricting will commence following the delivery of the final PL 94-171 data, which should come at the close of September. The public access will last for 3 weeks. So it'll be 3 weeks from the 1st of September. All right, and for the legislature, for the state legislature, it will occur after January 1, 2022 and last for 3 weeks. So, all right. Do I have any members of the committee that would like to make any statement? All right. Well, we want to at this time we're going to open it up for any comments that we might have, and I have Ms. Frazier. Frazier King. Okay. I didn't want to mispronounce that, so I apologize.
Sorry. Hope everyone is doing all right this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
As you said, I'm Dorita Frazier King, and I'm here as a representative of the Mississippi Joint Legislature, as a member of the One Voice Mississippi, the Natchez Adams County branch of the NAACP, and representing the state conference of the NAACP. The redistricting process is a critical component of the democratic process at the local, state, and federal level. The citizens of Congressional District 3 and across the state have the right to voice their concerns and opinions about the nature of the drawing of district lines that ensure fair maps. The issue of voter suppression across District 3 and the state raises concerns, questions about the electoral process, including the lack of fair districts and one's right to choose their own political representation and not the opposite. Mississippi is one of the most restrictive states in the nation for voters and antiquated systems, laws, and practices that limit our fundamental rights to engage in political processes, limit our fundamental rights to engage in political processes. This state lack of online voters registration, early voters registration program, and an absentee voting system that requires less steps provides to be extremely burdensome for voters. The COVID-19 pandemic made this even worse. Many states implemented ballot drop programs and other efforts to ensure the safety of both voters and election officials before the 2020 election. Excuse me. Mississippi could have done the same thing to increase safety and access by developing early voting programs and other measures that would have made limited long lines and close contact of election day. But we did not. Instead, we passed legislation allowing individuals who contacted the viruses or were caregivers to use this as an excuse to vote by absentee ballot. This caused more confusion for citizens and election workers who then had to put their own health at risk to provide ballots for individuals with the virus. Voter suppression comes in many forms, with the most pressing issue being voter purges, gerrymandering, and polling places closing, and then confusion is created on election day. Without measures to remedy these problems, voter suppression will remain a threat to the democratic process in Mississippi. The citizens of Adams County deserve a fair voting process that is handled with integrity. The development of fair district lines at the local, state, and federal level can help to reduce voter suppression and help us create an electoral process that honors our right to full unimpaired political participation. Thank you for your concern and consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Morrow? Sorry about that.
How is everyone this evening? I'm not very familiar with this process. This is the first public hearing with the state legislature that I've ever attended. So I'm new at this and I'm learning. So if I'm going in the wrong direction, please put me back on track. And I just simply have questions concerning the process. When you draw these legislative and congressional lines, the legislature gets together and they do that. Am I correct? So after that, then you make that presentation to whom? Or do you just draw these lines, you vote on it, and it's put in place? Does the public have an opportunity to see what you have put together prior to anything being enacted?
In answer to you as a representative of this area, in answer to your question, the legislature will, these hearings you hear your testimony, but we'll go back to the legislature, and this committee will work on lines and draw up lines, and then we as a legislature will vote on whether or not, and accept whatever the presentation is. But as a citizen, if you don't agree with what is adopted by the legislature, you have standing, not just as an individual, but as a group, you have standing to challenge that redistricting process. But that will be your only chance to do that, unless you come to the legislature and sit in on meetings and talk to me and talk to other people and tell them what you disagree with about it.
Okay, so why are we having these hearings? What are you teaching me, and how?
We're having these hearings for the purpose of hearing your concerns and your inputs before decisions are made about how the districts are drawn, not someone's concerns after they're drawn. The purpose is for people to identify how they would like the districts to be drawn, what you feel like adequate representation in your area would look like, what communities, what's been done in the past that you don't like, how you would like for things you would like the committee to consider as they're drawing the districts. That's the purpose of the hearings.
Okay. I'm still having some reservations. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Bobby Bingham Morrow, and I am representing the NAACP Vicksburg branch. From what the two gentlemen just said to me, you're saying that this is my opportunity to have input into what you do. After you leave here, you're going to go and you're going to draw these lines, and you're going to go ahead and vote and put these lines in place, so this will be law. This is what the lines are. And then I'm given the opportunity to come in and protest or show my agreement with what you've done. Is that what you're saying to me?
No, let me be clear. You don't protest. What we anticipate is if you're dissatisfied with the way the lines are drawn, and as a citizen, like in the 3rd District, I anticipate that these gentlemen will draw a congressional district that I won't agree with. And so I'll be interested in talking to people and citizens who'll be interested in filing a legal action to challenge the way those lines are drawn. That Shaw versus Tennessee or Memphis, there have been a number of cases where people have challenged because of they violated the Voting Rights Act, or they're not contiguous and compact, or the lines not drawn. But there will be discussions later. Let me say this: the unfairness of what's happening now is that the legislature is trying to have open hearings and talk to you about redistricting, but you don't have the benefit of knowing enough about redistricting when we have these kind of meetings to come in and ask all the appropriate questions. But you see all the people sitting here. What I would suggest to you is that as you listen and talk to this, contact your representatives and get more information. And as this process is going on, you can talk to the people. For instance, you in Vicksburg, you're either represented by Oscar Denton or Mr. Ford. And you talk to them about the things, and Bridge Hopson. I forgot about my good friend, Senator Hopson. But yeah, you talk to them about what your concerns are, what you'd like to see happen. But that's going on in the process. But yeah, when we leave here, we go in as a legislature, because we're a representative legislature, and we take the information we've gathered here. I'm not on the committee, but I will listen to some of these concerns, and then we go back and then we'll work and vote on whatever the recommendations are that they come back with. But your ability to agree or disagree will be through your legislative representation or through some legal action that will come after we adopt something.
I'm still having problems with that. But I guess I'll talk to my representatives about that. But I do want to make this point, is that there should be an opportunity. This is one of my disagreements. My disagreement is that there should be another opportunity after you have come to an agreement on the lines that you are going to draw. There should be an opportunity for the public to have input at that point, because hopefully, especially in my case, I will know a little bit more about redistricting based on the numbers that we've received from the census, and I'll know enough to ask what I would consider intelligent questions that would affect the community as a whole. I'm speaking to you just from the standpoint of where I stand on redistricting, trying to learn more about it. But I just think that just for the basic citizen, every one of us should have another opportunity to come and voice our opinion on the lines that you have drawn. Please allow us that. Thank you.
That's it. All right. That's the only two requests that I had at this time. Is there anyone on the committee who would like to say anything?
I've said enough.
Just quick.
Yeah, sure.
We have, by the way, as the chairman said, we have a lot of people that are watching online. We have some that have had COVID. We have some that have other issues. Plus, it's a long ways from Tupelo or Corinth to here. So, so we have some, everyone's watching, including the Lieutenant Governor's staff. But said all that to say that I'm seeing Dave Deering here makes me miss Bob Deering. Glad you're here.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Since I'm at home and people don't see me as much as they need to, I'm going to say a few words.
You're welcome.
All right. Just as a background, so in redistricting, Mississippi is one of the states, either 33 or 29 states, that have to comply with what you call compactness and contiguousness. which means that when you draw a line, you just can't, you know, randomly draw things to benefit one side or the other. They have to make sense. And you also, even though we don't have the Voting Rights Act, Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act the way we used to, where you would have to have Justice Department pre-clearance before you adopt a plan, you still have to abide by the law that says you cannot dilute minority voting strength or the minority ability to elect people in the area. And so there's still, in my opinion as a lawyer, there's some question about what does dilution mean. I feel like right now we have districts that are extremely polarized, and in that sense, with the overwhelming majority of one party or one race over another one in the legislature, I would suggest to you that that is a dilution of African American voting strength. Some people would disagree with that, but those are the kind of issues that you would bring up, and that's those kind of issues that as your representatives I will be talking about in the legislature. But I can tell you that as a representative legislature, the legislature is always open. And even though we may not come to here in this district and have hearings, I always say that the most important thing you can do as a voter is to visit your legislature and have meetings and talk to the people who represent you. And this is a critical time. It may take some sacrifice, but I would encourage people as we go through this redistricting process to attend some of those reapportionment meetings and to be there and to understand what's going on and to have some say in it. You may not be able to speak at the committee, but you can talk to your representatives immediately after or on a break and have some input. Because this is a critical time. There have been reduction in population in the 2nd Congressional District. There's been a slight increase in some other districts. There's been for instance, in Southwest Mississippi, in the area that I and Sam Mims represent, there's been I think close to a 10% reduction in population. I know in Adams County it has been. So all those things will come into consideration. But I have no interest in, and I will not stand by, and I would hope that none of you would, and see a district taken away or a district reduced. You want to continue to have, you know, the representation that you have, but you also want to be able to have a state legislature that reflects the population and demographic in the state of Mississippi, and that may require some disagreement with maybe the way the lines are drawn or maybe the districts that are drawn. But you, a lady from Vicksburg, asked the correct question and have the correct concerns about having some input before we adopt something, and the only thing that's left for you is some legal action that you have to take on behalf of the citizens in your area, or because you don't have the Department of Justice protection like we have. Hopefully before we adopt a plan, they'll pass a new Voting Rights Act in Congress, but right now you don't have that protection. So those are the kind of things you have to consider, and those are the things between these hearings that when you leave here and you understand, for instance, what you just said about having some input later, is something that the chairman can consider. Whether or not once we adopt a plan, he may want to do another tour. Probably not, but he may want to, just to answer some of those concerns. But those are the kind of things that these hearings are good for, hearing the things that you find inadequate or that you're dissatisfied with, and maybe we can make some correction in this process.
Anyone else have anything?
Representative Robert Johnson, District 94, since we're filming this, anybody don't need to know. Okay.
Do you have a card? The staff will give you one, and just because we have a record then of who will.
Mr. Chairman, while she comes forward, may I speak momentarily?
You're more than welcome to come on. We just need a name for our records.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Morrow is a constituent of mine, and I know her. and I think I will echo what Representative Johnson said, my friend from this neck of the woods.
That's right.
That, you know, we're here, each of us are elected by the people of our districts, and we want to be advised, we want to be told of the concerns that you have. And Bobby, of course, you can reach out to me anytime and speak with me about your concerns, and I think I would speak for every legislator to say, this is the beginning of that process where we listen to what concerns you, what you think about the old districts, and what you think you might want a new district to appear like on the maps. And I think, if memory serves me correct from the last time that we did this 10 years ago, there will be a time when the maps and the districts are drawn, and there was that period. We had maps actually posted at the Capitol for people we didn't have hearings around the state, but there was definitely an opportunity, and I believe there will be an opportunity for anybody to either go online, come to the Capitol, call me. Bob, you can call me anytime, or anybody can, to say, here's what I like or don't like, and that's what we're here for. And then, of course, at some point, we'll have to adopt as a group, both the Senate and the House, the various maps that will be approved. And I say various because we have House, Senate, and as was mentioned at the beginning, the congressional maps. That will probably be done earlier, as I think the chair said. So there is a process. I don't want people to feel at all like they're being left out, and I think I speak for every legislator by saying, in saying that we want to hear from you as this process goes forward. But good questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right. We have gotten a couple more questions, and so Ms. Deering, I believe I got that one first. So.
Hi, gentlemen. Thank y'all for coming to Adams County, to Natchez and to Adams County. This is so important. I want to say that I echo some of the concerns, many of the concerns that you said you've heard around the state about split precincts or splitting up municipalities. Split precincts particularly, and I was glad to hear you say that, Chairman Beckett, that y'all are going to do everything you can to make sure that, you know, within your means, within your power, to make sure that that happens rarely, because they are a headache for the poll workers. They're a headache for the election commissioners. They're confusing as heck for the voters, and they're just frustrating for everybody and the candidates. So I'm glad to hear that, and I applaud that. Thank you.
Yes. Representative Reed.
Ma'am, I think it was mentioned we don't have machinery in Jackson, but no, talking about split precincts, we're here for congressional and state, and I'd be willing to bet you when we get through with our, I would just say the last time we had very, very few split precincts. Not in the levels. Okay, we do ours first. We have to abide by one man, one rule. Just, you know, what's said, that's what we have to go by. Well, guess what? After we get those things the way we want them, here comes your county government, supervisors. They have to abide by the one man, one rule. They have shifts in their population. They've got to draw districts. And it's probably not going to concur with what we have. Then if you want to really they get theirs, then here come the cities. If there's 2 or 3 municipalities in a county, and then they draw their districts according to guidelines. So it's just about impossible not to have on the municipal level split precincts in the county. But at our level, we will definitely be working to try to eliminate anything like that, because we understand the hardship it does put. But the nature of the beast is, you know, federal, state, county, and then the municipalities. And by the time everybody gets through the chopping, you're going to have split precincts. That's just my personal opinion, because everyone has to go by certain guidelines, certain rules, certain percentages. You know, you just like the gentleman from Natchez was talking. You just don't draw lines. There has to be a reason you're drawing a line, or what you have to keep the same ratio, same proportions. It is a very, very delicate procedure you have to go through. Now, he was talking about maybe there'd be some federal legislation. I don't know, but right now we're doing the best we can, and I do not believe we'll have split precincts on our level. If we do, it will be very, very few, but it's on down where that really starts happening. And I thank you.
Yeah, the split precincts are a personal thing with me. The first time I ran, I had 23. So I know the difficulties that can cause the vote, just the voter. There was voter fraud. I wouldn't say there was anybody's fault. There were just mistakes made by poll workers. When you have that many split precincts, you're going to have them. Ms. Holmes?
Hello, I'm Danielle Holmes with the Mississippi Poor People's Campaign. I have 2 questions. When will the maps be available for public viewing and consideration?
Actually, at this hearing, we're here to take your comments and concerns and just your request. That's not information that I don't even know it at this point in time. We don't have a set time, and so I couldn't answer that question.
So once you get the set time, when will it be made available to the public? Or how soon will it be made available for public viewing?
I mean, there's not a set amount of time. The law doesn't have a set time.
Are any legislators willing to hold hearings at community town hall forums on redistricting?
You mean after this?
After.
Sure,
Mhm.
yeah. We intend to.
Y'all-
Some of us intend to.
Some of you all?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Ms. Bridgewater Irving?
Good evening, and thank you
Good
for
evening.
having me down front. My name is Felicia Irving. I'm the Alderperson of Ward 4. Redistricting will be something new for me, my first complete term going into my second term. However, she actually asked a question I had concern about. When will town hall meetings take place, and are there available dates so that we can gather more information on the meetings? So that the public will know. If you're gonna hold a town hall meeting, is it gonna be in the newspaper? Would it come back to Alcorn State University? What form of media or vehicle you would use to disseminate that information?
These hearings are not required. It used to be under the Voting Rights Act that you had to have public hearings before you start redistricting. They're doing it as a courtesy now, but as your representative, as this process goes along, because this is a very critical time, I'll be hosting for our area, for District 94, we're going to have some meetings about the drawing of the line, how the 3rd district will be affected. I will hold those here in Adams County. But they don't have a responsibility to come back down here and do anything else. They may do it as a matter of courtesy, but for information purposes, I intend to do that.
Thank you. And I'm sharing that because I have had a lot of concerned citizens calling and asking.
Yeah.
Their concerns about the redistricting.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could you also give the information, because I don't have this. So they asked about when maps will be available, but there is also a time when the public will have access to the census information. Do you know when that's going to be available?
That was a question.
I anticipate somebody asking me that.
Yeah, is census, is it now? What site, what's a public site that?
Yeah, I don't know how to cut it back.
Census.gov, and of course, we're beginning to put information on our website right now. We're beginning to roll the numbers out so that people will be able to take a look at the same kind of things that are on those handouts. And I'll be happy to provide you with the information on how to get that.
Thank you so very much.
Right. All right. If it's a question, someone might want to answer it afterwards. We're really not set up to answer questions. If you have a comment or something. Okay.
Yes.
Well, no, we have people viewing, so if you don't mind coming down. The people in the room could probably hear you, but
I first want to say that I really do appreciate you all having this hearing. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do and the people that you have to deal with. I understand. Would you help me as an individual who I said does not fully understand redistricting? I'm a very visual person. When you talk me through it, I don't get the full effects of what is happening. When you start talking about redistricting, all I know is numbers. Can you, when you come to these public hearings, when you offer these public hearings, allow us some visuals, for instance, and some scenarios, where maybe in a PowerPoint you show us that this particular city has this many individuals in it. When we start redistricting, and this is how they drew the lines this way, and it's totally wrong, and then you detail what is wrong with these lines that were drawn for this district. And then you show how there could be a better setup and what would have been worthwhile for the majority of the individuals in that community. Because that's what we're looking for, right? Is what is good for the majority of the individuals in that community. I'd just like to see some scenarios, because I still fully don't understand what you do when you take these numbers back to the boardroom and go over them and develop maps. That I would like to see. So can we do something like that? Develop some presentation that when you're talking about doing these town hall meetings and going in and talking to just the basic public, a lot of us don't fully understand what's happening. All we know is that you got redistricting, which affects voting, which affects a whole lot of economics in your community, housing, all these things. Could you help us in that respect by providing some kind of visuals?
Well, the maps that they have on the outside walls out here basically is almost all the information they've gotten so far. They received the numbers of people last Friday, and they took that information and they overlaid it on our existing districts. So by looking at those, you can tell which ones have gained population, which ones have lost population. They've kind of told, and this material has what's an ideal size, so you're going to know which ones have to get larger, which ones have to get smaller. And I know they're kind of hard to see, but it does have the existing districts on there, and then you're able to see, based on the new population numbers, what the challenges are going to be as far as moving those people around. Now, I know that's not all the information that you asked for, but that's really all the information that they have prepared in a written form. That's all the information we have right now. We're just at the very beginning of this process.
I understand that. But I'm just saying, just from, I mean, this is something that I'm asking you guys to do, that I'm asking the Mississippi State Legislature to do, is to appoint some individuals to develop some visuals that you can take into communities. And even when we're not redistricting, I'd say a year after we have drawn the maps or whatever, you can still offer these visuals to individuals so that for the next 10 years they can be learning about redistricting and how it's done, and they will know what kind of questions to ask, because I'm still at a loss for what I need to ask or what I need to recommend to you that will fully help the community. I need a visual.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, as a Democratic leader in the House, I intend to partner with some of our advocate groups and put on, some of whom I see here, that we're going to put on some seminars in the midst of this redistricting where we explain to you and show, for instance, the committee may have a map. We're going to have alternative maps. We're going to explain to you how we come up with that, what these numbers mean. We did that. We've done that before. We'll do it again, and not as a challenge to anybody, but it's to be informative and to have as much input and to educate the public as much as possible. But I can tell you, as a Democratic leader in the House, we intend to do that. We may not be able to do it everywhere, but you certainly will have it in Southwest Mississippi. You have it in Hinds County, and you'll have it in the Delta and some other places as well.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I've got another Miss Collins.
I'm a little short, so I'm going to lower this. Good evening.
Good evening.
Jennifer Riley Collins, here in my personal capacity. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for taking the opportunity to hear from the public this evening. One of the things that has been most transparent and clear is that the public wants an opportunity to be heard after the lines are drawn. And so my concern, my request of this body is, in the day of modern technology, that a website be developed that would make it transparent and constantly current to those persons who are interested, those citizens who want to make sure that their one man, one vote is actually supported in this process, that be clear. As we can see from the maps based on the current census data available, there have been great population shifts in some key areas in our state. And because of that, trying to get to equal population in each of the districts, it is going to be critical for the citizenry to be able to see what the legislature is proposing so that they can have their voice heard in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got this website. There was a question about where can some of the census data be looked at, and I want to give this to you. It's www.msjrc.state.ms.us, and I'm going to give it to you one more time. It's www.msjrc.state.ms.us, and state is S-T-A-T-E. It's not abbreviated, it's spelled out. And so, and that's the location of the census data information. All right, I want to thank y'all for being here, and once again, I would love to thank Alcorn for providing this space for us. I want to thank our public for attendance, our staff for the job they've done, and just remind you that we're just at the beginning of this process, and that you may provide your comments, suggestions, or proposed plans that you have to same address as earlier, Ted Booth at Staff Council, Joint Reapportionment Committee, P.O. Box 1204, Jackson, Mississippi 39215-1204, or send an email to ted.booth@peer.ms.gov. And please provide your name and email along with that information so the staff can follow up, because they won't be able to follow up without that. With that, do I have any members of the committee that would like to say anything? All right, well, this meeting stands adjourned.